Yo, what's going on everybody? It's DJ Sketch and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Sega Genesis shooter by the name of Dynamite Duke, developed by Saibo Kaihatsu in 1989 and receiving a Sega Genesis port in 1990 along with a Sega Master System and the X68000. This is a sweeping shoot-'em-up game in the style of Cabal and the Punisher, released a few years prior on the NES. The story is quite simple and it goes a bit like this. Top scientist Dr. Neil Ash decides to utilize a secret formula to develop his very own army of evil mutant warriors so he can become the ruler of the world. It is up to Dynamite Duke Fredericks, a man armed with a cybernetic arm that's 10 times more powerful than an ordinary human and a machine gun, to foil his dastardly plan. Sounds simple enough, right? Gameplay wise, it feels very similar to a light gun game or a rail shooter, except that your character is on screen with an over-the-shoulder viewpoint and the goal is simple: punch, kick, and shoot everything in sight in order to bring down this mad scientist. At the end of each stage, Duke has to fight a end boss in hand-to-hand combat, mainly, which is kind of mixed in sometimes with shooting segments, much like the end boss on stage 3, which is just a vehicle onslaught. But also the strategy with this is to just punch and kick, just spam the shit out of the punches and kicks and you'll be just fine through most boss encounters. And during play you'll also be able to pick up a few items to make the game a little bit more manageable, this being bullets to add to your ammo stocks, full auto fire which consumes no bullets but fires at an increased rate of fire for a short amount of time, the bulletproof vest will buy you a few extra free hits, and the rare bazooka, which I never found, which provides 10 shots of increased damage, first aid kits for health replenishment, and the Dynamite Punch, which works as a screen clear and also does massive damage against bosses. At first, playing this back when it originally released, this game felt impossible after stage 3. However, playing it nowadays, it proves while parts can be difficult, it can be beaten, especially the flamethrower bosses. Those shitbags even give me a bit of trouble even nowadays, if I'm not paying attention at least. But still, this one is a lot of fun to revisit from time to time on the Genesis, and it's also one of the first games I remember trying out for the system way back when this first released. So once you have a grasp of the controls and learn the enemy and the boss patterns, you can probably plow through this in about 20 to 30 minutes. Well, this one is also kind of a funny little extra fact too. Also an extra fun fact, the game is more known in the States for its really bad cover art, which pictured a character on the front which looks nothing like who you'll play as in game, which is I've always kind of found funny. It looks like a high school gym teacher or something. But the Japanese cover art, Duke actually bears a slight resemblance to the action star Dolph Lundgren, which is slightly more accurate to the depiction you see in game compared to what we got in the States. So Japanese box cover, once again better than the American one, but who's counting, right? So in conclusion, I know that we kind of went around a lot of stuff with this one, but all in all, Dynamite Duke for the Sega Genesis is a fun shooter to run through, but expect to get hung up on some of the bosses a few times before figuring out optimal strategies. But once you do, you're basically cruising through this game for the most part, and it is a lot of fun to play. Despite the difficulty spikes in some sections, especially leading up towards the end, it's still a lot of fun to play through, and also it's a cheap one to find, so if you're into games like this, definitely give it a go. Like, you won't be sorry that you did. And for this one, we're going to give Dynamite Duke an 8 out of 10. Totally solid buy, solid playthrough. So if you're into games like this, again, go for it. And if you find these reviews helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use these as a resource. And check back often for new videos. I try to post at least every week if possible, if not every other week. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.